What is cracking, Hope Nation? It is your friendly neighborhood Kevin Hines for yet again another episode of the Hinesights podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, people of all walks of life, listen closely. Today, we are in for a great gift from the heavens above. My amazing guest today is the one and only Heather Palacios. Heather is married to Raul Palacios, and together they're raising two boys in sunny South Florida. She is a graduate of Judson University with a degree in business management. Heather is also the founder of Wondherful. That's Wondherful Inc., an organization with a simple mission. One more suicide is one too many. Let's get serious. Her mission is being accomplished through an eclectic speaking circuit, from corporations to prisons, to law enforcement communities, to churches, to schools, to halfway homes, to psychiatric hospitals, colleges, charity events, and the dissemination of free life boxes. We'll let her describe what a life box is. It's going to be incredible. To anyone, anywhere, going through anything, because pain is universal. So they won't give up an educational and encouraging online presence through social media and their website. Heather is a multiple suicide attempt survivor who believes if you wake up breathing, that is your proof to keep on going. She's an incredible human being, giving back so much of herself to this world, making it a much, much, much better place. Please, Hinesights audience, listening, viewing, and subscribing, give Heather an uproarious welcome to the Hinesights podcast. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. That's a great intro.
You know, there's a school of thought with intros for podcasts. I know a lot of people would say they don't do anything to drive the podcast forward. Analytics-wise, they don't matter. But to me, they matter because the guests coming on my podcast are very important to me. They're very special to me, and I appreciate them. And of course, we appreciate you at the Hinesights podcast. So, Heather, let's get right into it. And let's pause. Before we get into your story, let's go back, if you don't mind, into the rearview mirror. Where and when were you born? What was your upbringing like?
I was born in Bowling Green, Ohio, and my upbringing was tough, financially, relationally, scholastically, medically, had a lot of obstacles.
Can you go into depth about any of them?
Yeah. I've had all my life an incurable lung disease that has yet to be identified. We just, treat it. We moved a lot. We were poor. We were on food stamps. I was bullied. There was a lot of dysfunction in my upbringing, and I started battling suicide at 8 years old.
At 8 years old. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. I'm so terribly sorry for that. And I'm so glad we get to have you on the podcast because you're here. You exist.
That's right.
You have this great purpose. Okay, Heather, let's go into the crux of your story. Tell us about adolescence growing up into adulthood, your struggles with suicidal ideation. Share with us the journey you've been on.
Well, it started at 8 years old. And at 8 years old, I started having just suicidal thoughts, just didn't want to live anymore. This was before there was awareness and agendas and podcasts and coalitions. If you were struggling in 1981 as an 8-year-old with suicidal thoughts, that was a lonely band. I actually found that the suicide letter that I wrote recently, I use this when I speak to students. I still have it. But that was the first time then as a teenager, I would take that idea and actually put it into motion. And I actually have that suicide letter too.
Wow.
And then in college, I would attempt again. Then I moved and got married and became a pastor's wife. And a year after being married, I would attempt again. And this time the state of Florida stepped in and enforced what's called a Baker Act, which meant that for 72 hours, I was to be detained in a psychiatric unit under the supervision of a state-appointed psychologist. And they put me in, for lack of a better word, solitary confinement due to the violence that I had exhibited at the scene of the suicide attempt. And after that, I was like, there is definitely something wrong with me. I've lived 27 years wanting to die. So I got a lot of help from a psychiatrist, medicine, my faith, and just kind of put myself back together again. And from that point on, from July 30th, 2000 to today, I've been helping people not give up, but I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
So the most recent plan that I made, I'm sorry to say, it was during COVID. That's when it hit me again, and I would make a plan, start to put it in motion, and was able to call Lifeline and get some help. So, Kevin, I'm 50 years old. I started battling suicide as an 8-year-old, and barring senior citizen years, I have endured suicide ideation in every season of a person's life. As a child, as a teenager, as a college student, as a young adult business professional, as a wife, as a parent in a pandemic, and last year after the loss of my little brother. So I know what it's like to want to die.
You've been through so much, you've endured so much pain to come out on the other side every single time. How have you coped with these chronic thoughts that plague you?
Great question, Kevin. I have learned to work hard. And I know that sounds so trite, but I obviously have an affliction in my brain. And I've never distinguished that from anybody having an affliction anywhere in their body. And so if 20 years ago, I was in a car accident and declared paralyzed and had to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I would work hard at the new protocol for surviving and sustaining a life in a wheelchair. And my brain is the same way. I have learned that I need to work hard at this life that is, mentally afflicted, and I do the work, man. I do the work.
You put in the time, the effort, the energy, and the hard work for things to change. I can relate to that as someone who lives with chronic thoughts. I can relate to that very much. And I really respect your hustle and grind to stay brain and mentally well and to keep on this planet and to keep going. Obviously, you've got your family that inspires you, and your husband and your kids, and you've got this endeavor, this drive to continue to be here tomorrow and every day after that, no matter the pain you might be in, which is really admirable. It's not easy to live with chronic thoughts of suicide when your brain is telling you have to die, and you have to fight that it's not that you want to, you're in so much pain, you believe that's the only option. And so when you fight that, it's a true battle with the mind and the fight or flight system that exists within the human body. You're doing an incredible job, and you're going forward and helping so many people find hope, healing, and recovery through your life boxes and through so much we'll get into in a minute. Heather, what are some of the things how do you utilize faith to battle your brain pain? And alongside that question, the next question is, what are your other coping strategies? So how does faith play a role in your fight?
Well, I am a person of faith, and that can be a lonely mission. I think there's definitely this misnomer out there that a person of faith should not struggle with suicide, but I do. And so I think that's also what motivates me to conquer the thoughts to give up is I want to let it be known that anybody can struggle with suicide, because I don't want people to discredit any people of faith that express suicidal thoughts, and then God forbid they go ahead and carry it out because nobody in their circle believed them. The Bible has people that struggled mentally. I didn't write the Bible, but I read it, and from it I see Elijah, David, Moses, Job, Jonah. These dudes, their names are in the Bible, but so are their stories. And they struggled mentally. Elijah said, God, I've had enough. Take my life. So it can happen to people of faith.
I think we forget that. I think we forget the words in the Bible and Elijah and Moses and because I read it too growing up as a kid, as a Catholic, growing up reading the Bible. And the one thing I keep hearing from people is, oh, Kevin, just pray it away. Pray your bipolar depression away. Pray the suicidal ideations away. Hey, friend, I pray every single day to God, to Jesus. I love God. I love the Lord. I love my faith. I'm a staunch faith-filled man. But it doesn't stop my brain disease, which is a physical piece of matter.
Right.
That's why they call it mind over matter. It
Right.
doesn't stop this physical piece of matter. The strongest organ in my body, the strongest muscle in my body is my brain, and it too can become diseased just like every other organ in the body. Yes,
Right.
I believe there is a place for faith to come forth and for prayer to come forth and help you heal. I believe that.
Right.
But there has to be a lot more work to be done on the brain aspect of things to train your brain, to change your brain, to change your life, as Dr. Amen always
Right.
said. So you
Right.
have to really, if you have a brain health diagnosis, a mental disorder, there's so much encompassing that you have to do to challenge it and to fight it and to be here tomorrow.
Right.
So I really appreciate that perspective from you in a big way. Okay, let's get into it. Heather, what is Wondherful?
Okay. Wonderful is the name of my non-for-profit. And it's just, through me going around sharing my story, to providing all kinds of resources on my website, to sending free life boxes to anybody, anywhere going through anything. That all comes under the umbrella of Wonderful.
Incredible.
And so, yeah, we started doing the life boxes in November of 2020. And to date, we are almost at 15,000 life boxes to all 50 states and 14 countries.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And tell me, if I'm gonna order a life box, what's inside?
Well, I actually have one here. If you order a life box because you are struggling with grief, PTSD, childhood trauma, addiction, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, if you're a veteran, I mean, we curate it to anybody's affliction because we can give up over any reason. People give up for a host of reasons. And so at Wonderful, we try to curate the life box so that whatever they're going through, we've given them some encouragement and some resources to help them to keep going. I can't save people. Kevin, you can't save people.
No,
okay.
no.
But we can love them. And this is a box that says to that person, you're loved and you matter. So
You're loved and you matter. And
Yeah.
also, when you give someone something like a life box or a care package for love and care and empathy, when you show someone you care, when you show that they have value, they're more apt to stay here. That's a fact. Actually, when people recognize that other people value them outside of them, other people care for them, and that they're important to other people,
Right.
they can fight suicidal ideation even better. As
Yeah.
Dr. John Draper says, if you're holding onto a cliff, he said this in our film, Suicide the Ripple Effect. If you're holding onto a cliff with one arm and there's a person coaching you on the other side saying, come up, you can do this, I believe in you. You can hold on for longer and you're more likely to come back to safety.
Right.
It's the same way with these life boxes. It allows people to see, wait a minute, I do have importance in this world. People do genuinely care about me. And even if it's a perfect stranger sending me a life box, I know that I matter. It's incredible.
Right.
What you're doing is incredible.
So, the one thing, the one thing that the life box has, every single one of them, which means our team has written almost 15,000, but they all have a personal handwritten card. And I've seen people have sent me DMs. They put this in a frame. They frame this.
Yeah.
It floors me. How it's just a box of encouragement and resources. This particular one is for grief. So it has forget-me-not seeds that you can plant. It's got a grief booklet, little stuffed animal. But it floors me that I've read all the reasons that have come in through the website. I read them, I pray for them, and we curate the boxes for them.
Wow.
We are a hurting human race, Kevin.
Yeah.
We are a hurting human race. And Kevin, people like you and me, are few. But I thank God that we have voices, because you and me know what it's like to want to die. But we also know what it's like to get to live. And even though we're just two people, I think God can use our voices mightily to help people keep going.
You hit the nail on the head, Heather. And I'm getting emotional because I just lost my 18th friend to suicide, a person that I only met recently who I was desperately trying to keep alive.
Yeah.
And she's gone.
Yeah.
And I think about it, and I don't hold guilt or blame for myself because I learned not to do that for after a long time of losing now 18 people. I worked tirelessly to try to help keep her here, and her mother wrote to me and said, "You did keep her here for all these times,"
Yeah.
but then she stopped reaching out, and then she
Right.
passed. So
Right.
you know,
And I think people underestimate how painful this is for us. For you and me, I mean, do you know that I've given life boxes to people and have also attended their funeral, including my little brother last year? You know, it can have a real adverse effect on you and me. We're vulnerable to death.
sure,
Okay. And then you pile on top of that that the people we're trying to help are dying. It's a tough calling. It's a
yeah,
tough calling. And I have two ways I can look at it. I can look at this, throw up my hands and say, I'm not making a difference. So and so just died. Or I can say, I'm doing the best I can. And who else is going to do it if not me?
right. And your actions have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Your actions have a equal and opposite reaction. And a lot of the times you're giving those life boxes out, probably most of the time, you're changing and saving a life through your efforts. Maybe you're not saving life, but you are a conduit. We are conduits to a message to give that message so that people go home. They do the work. They
Right.
tell their family, they tell their friends, they tell their doctors what they're going through. They ask for help for the
Right.
first time in 30 years. Then they
Right.
get it. Then they transition their life to a better life, a more safe life, a more well lived life. And you
Right.
had a part to play in that, and your life boxes had a part to play in that. And they absolutely made a significant difference in this world. And you are changing the world with what you're doing. Don't ever doubt that. We know that we may not be lowering the general numbers of suicide across this nation, but we are having a based on based individual effect on people's lives, and it matters. I just got to, I just told you about the person I lost recently a few weeks ago, but I get
Yeah.
messages every day. I'm sure you do too. I get
Yeah.
messages every day saying this story saved my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you're having an impact, and it's incredible. And if
Yeah.
not us, then who? That's the question.
Yeah.
So
I mean, who else is going to be Kevin Hines? Is there another one of you on Amazon.com? Can we, bid for you on eBay? You're it. There's one. There will always only be one Kevin Hines. And you don't have to be you. You get to be you. And the world is better because you're being you.
yeah, right
You
back
know?
at you. Right back at you.
Yeah.
We're here for a reason, and it's not to die by our hands. That's not our purpose.
Right.
Think about it like this, Heather. Each of us has a 400 trillionth of a chance to be birthed into this world. We have a 400 trillionth of a chance to simply exist on this planet.
Right.
That means
Right.
we're meant to be here until our natural end, never to die by our hands. I know what that
Right.
means. We just
Right.
got to teach people who are in pain that that's what it means, and that their life is worth living, that they have value, that they do matter, that they are important, and
Yeah.
that they're worthy of being here until their natural end, no matter the pain
Right.
they're in. How do you hold grace in the pain you're experiencing? Let me ask you that.
Well, there's practically speaking, when I start to have thoughts to take my life, because here's the deal. I've taken all the certifications of suicide prevention. So I know how to do it and do it successfully. You and me have the education.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to have a plan, because that education could also come back and haunt us when we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do, practically speaking, if I start to have thoughts to give up, like I did last year, is I have to call someone. And I keep that simple. Call someone, because I can say that in sign language. I can say it in Spanish. I can say it in Jamaica. I can say it in Creole. And children understand call someone. And so I'm always telling people, the first thing you do is you need to call someone. And if their response is, I don't have someone to call, well, then call 988.
Yeah.
Because whether you call someone that loves you or you call 988, none of them are going to tell you to go through with it.
Right.
So I always, practically speaking, when I'm in that bad frame of mind where I'm really wanting to give up, I call someone. I either call my counselor, my pastor, or my husband. But to keep the grace in the middle of such a sucky weakness. I mean, listen, Kevin, wouldn't you take anything else over? Like, for of all things to be tempted by, I wish mine was being a shopaholic or something. I mean, but for my temptation to be suicide, that's a tough temptation.
Yeah.
And so the grace that I have is I tell myself that I'm the only one of me. I was not aborted. I was not miscarried, and I woke up breathing today. And there is not a backup Heather Michelle Funk Palacios in the box. I'm it.
Yeah.
And whether I am a custodian at a school or a queen in London, England, it doesn't matter what I do. It's who I am.
Yeah.
I am the only Heather Michelle Funk Palacios. And that, in and of itself, with nothing else, is a gift to humanity because they will never see another one like me.
Absolutely. Yes, I am with you. And to each and every person watching, listening, viewing, subscribing right now, who might be going through a world of pain and you're struggling with these kinds of thoughts or ideations, or you're struggling with drug addiction or whatever you're dealing with, you are the only one of you. The people that love you need you, but more importantly, you need you. Be your own best advocate if you feel you have nobody else. Make sure to live for you every day, to fight, to challenge the ideas in your head that are so negative, spiteful, and hateful. Suicidal ideations are the greatest liars we know. We don't have to listen to them.
Right.
They're the liars. Don't listen to them. Suicide is never the solution to your problem because it is the problem.
Right.
Recognize that you have the power to turn things around. And if you don't see light or hope at the end of the tunnel, keep moving forward. You haven't walked far enough to reach it. Heather, what is one tip you have for someone living or someone who loves someone with a diagnosed mental struggle?
You know, one thing I would say, Kevin, to answer that question is believe the person. If there's one thing that gets my goat, man, is when I hear the parent or the spouse or the partner not believe what people like you and me are saying. Worst case scenario, they're crying wolf and exaggerating with their mental circumstances. So what? That still means there's something broken in them. That still means that there's a hurt in them crying out. So just believe people if they come to you. Now, maybe you can't fix them, and maybe you don't subscribe to their mental affliction and its credibility. That's your issue to deal with on the side. Believe them in that moment when they come to you. Don't dismiss it. Don't discredit it.
Believe them. Don't dismiss it. Don't discredit it. Be kind and compassionate to them, loving and caring, empathetic and non-judgmental. Don't tell them it's wrong or bad what they're thinking. Millions of people around the world live with suicidal ideation and attempts. What we can do right now is be a more graceful individual, giving grace to people in mental pain, letting them know that they're allowed to talk about their struggles without judgment. And maybe we don't have to give them advice or tell them what to do or fix their issue. Maybe they just need someone to listen, to understand, not to respond, to be there as a shoulder to lean on, an arm around the shoulder and say, I got your back. I'm not going anywhere until I know you're safe. What do you need from me? How can I be of service to help you stay here in this moment?
Right. Yeah. Believe people, you know, I mean, here's the deal. I don't want to not believe a 10-year-old when they come to me and tell me they're having thoughts of suicide. I don't want to not believe them because you know what? I've done life boxes for families who've lost 10-year-olds to suicide. So be a believer in people, not only when they're doing awesome, be a believer of people when they're broken and struggling.
Yeah. And let's paint a clear picture here. For everybody viewing now in this time and listening, the youngest, it's my understanding, the youngest person in America to die by suicide was 7 or 6 years old. And you think to yourself, how does a 7-year-old know how to do something like that? Well, the individual was being abused and neglected at home and took their life, and they had found some media that portrayed a suicide attempt, and they enacted that attempt, and they died in the room. So, you know, to all the parents out there, to all the parents and the guardians and the grandparents out there, your child, your grandchild, the child you take care of comes to you and says they're suicidal. They have the articulate ability to come to you and tell you they're going through this in some way, shape, or form, or they write it down, they put it in a crayon, whatever they do. Don't discredit them. Look them in the eyes and say, I'm here for you. And we're going to walk you to safety. We're going to make sure you're safe. We're going to be here for you. And that's not the answer. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you all the wonderful things your life is going to create if you get to grow older. Let me tell you about the fact that you're going to grow up someday and have a family of your own. You're going to have a wonderful career in the job you love because you work so hard to get there. You're going to have the ability to have your favorite dog named Max, and he's going to be amazing. You're going to love him like he's a little person. Whoever, whatever it is, paint the picture of a beautiful life, because just because you're in a world of pain today doesn't mean you don't get to have a beautiful tomorrow. But friend, you have to be here to get there in the first place. Heather,
Right.
I want to have you wrap it up and take us home here. And this is kind of a really important question. We touched upon it briefly earlier, but I want to hear your kind of raw, real answer. What do you say to someone that has just lost someone to suicide? How do you help?
It's the worst case scenario for what you and me are doing, Kevin. And especially when I've had to preside over funerals for suicides. Not only do I have one person asking, I have an entire church full of people asking, and this is what I tell my heart, and this is what I tell people is we cannot get them back, but we can live and help others live in their honor. I have a lot of involvement with halfway houses and sober living homes here in South Florida. They're very near and dear to my heart. There's a lot of suicides and overdoses in these houses. So I've been to many funerals for them. And I get up in front of this church filled with these, people in recovery, and they're so hurt. They're so broken that they've lost a comrade in this struggle of not just recovery from a substance abuse problem, but from they lost him to suicide too. And I just look out into the sea of faces at the hope, they just feel hopeless that somebody else died again. And we're just not going to take that laying down. I'm like, guys, we've lost another one. We've lost another one to a fentanyl overdose, but we're still here. And we are going to live in honor of him who died. We're going to live in honor of her who died. And we're going to try, and we're not going to give up, and we're going to keep going. And we are going to be able to manifest the person that we've lost, their life through ours. And their life is going to have good memory and good just responsiveness, because through us, we're going to help other people not end up the way that they did.
It's really getting to me watching these fentanyl poisonings across the country, even around the globe. Seeing how many people are dying and how much fentanyl is coming into the country. It's terrifying, and it is a poisoning. It's not simply an overdose. You take fentanyl, it's going to poison you. You're likely to die. And that's
Right.
really what it is. And it breaks my heart every time I see it. And I love what the people at the Hopeaholics podcast are doing to help with that message and that movement. But what you said is true. Reaching out to that community and saying we can't allow this to happen one more time. It doesn't mean that it's not going to, but it means that there's people on the ground like you fighting for change, fighting for the goodness of humankind, and giving back to your community in a big way. Heather, it's been incredible having you on the podcast. We couldn't be more grateful to have you on the show. This is a long time coming. We've been connected for a while, but this is finally happening. I'm so excited. And I hope that this message reaches a lot of people and helps change their minds, change their lives, gives them hope, and helps them find some healing. Heather, thank you for coming on the Hinesights podcast. To all the listeners, viewers, and subscribers, keep going. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, know this. If you've never heard it, if you haven't heard it before today, we love you and we want you to stay. Be here tomorrow. See ya.
Thanks, Kevin.